Hello there, my Pursuing Freedom friends. Thanks for being here today. If it's your first time here, I am your host, Erin Bradley, and welcome to the show. I've got a great interview in store for you today. And if you're a repeat offender out there following along for a while, you know I love you tuning in and being here. And you guys are going to nerd out on the conversation that we're about to share with you. So I've got Erin Velky here, and Erin is a transformational coach who is on a mission to help you reach the next level and create incredible impact in the world by solving your biggest problem, which is you. And I love this because we always talk about how we are our own worst bottleneck in everything in life and business. And he's been through all kinds of things, ups and downs, which I'll have him share with you today. But he's also the host of the Get Out of Your Own Way podcast, which is amazing. And how I found him is because he's a fellow member of an incredible organization called GoBundance. And honestly, I don't want to waste too much of our time today because Erin is a wealth of knowledge and inspiration. And I have a really good feeling you are going to leave this conversation feeling energized, inspired, and ready to tackle whatever's waiting for you next in life and in business. So with no further ado, Erin, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here with us today.
I'm grateful to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And give us a little backstory, Erin, because every time we have folks on the show that have experienced some kind of breakthrough or transformation in their life, and they're in this place of needing and feeling compelled to give back and help others to achieve their full potential, usually there's a little story, there's a little roller coaster involved. So we want to hear the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between, and we'll roll from there.
My coaching career started with youth athletics. I spent a lot of time in the athletic space, and I was coaching girls soccer. Did that as a professional club soccer coach for a long time. And going back to that, I remember why I started. It was the first time I'd ever been paid to do something I loved, and that was a big deal. The thing that I would have done for free, I earned money from. That became a very quick drug. And I think my passion for the sport was my first love. I played soccer in college, and it was everything I wanted to be. But then to be able to pass that on sort of started an interesting wheel. I had to get better as a coach. So I would try to learn and grow and evolve. And that made my team better, which made the results better, which made me feel like I needed to go learn more. And all of a sudden, this wheel happened. And in business, in my professional space, I ended up quitting my job in 2015. But in the professional space, you don't really get that wheel. There isn't a feedback loop that's that fast. If you go to learn more, you're waiting for a promotion. You're waiting for someone else to kind of give you the reins. In real estate and many other entrepreneurial endeavors, you can build a feedback loop that's fast. But inside of a corporate engine, you often can't. You can build it, but it takes a lot of time. Someone else dictates your future. Later, I started companies. I built a financial education company called Money Club, and we had built a sport out of money, taken it to the country really by building some tech. We transitioned from nonprofit to for profit. And this season of my life was really dictated by this nonprofit, later for profit idea that if you learned about money, if you learned financial intelligence, you would have a better future. So would your family, so would your friends, and so would your community. So here I am like a missionary during the day, and then I'm coaching youth soccer at night. And entrepreneurs out of the woodwork were just saying, how did you do this? I don't know that I knew how I did that. What I knew then was that with a lot of different context, with a lot of different pains, I was doing what I wanted to do. And most of the time, especially when we first start in business, we do what we have to do. While I believe very heavily in the idea that we can build a very fulfilling, very passion filled life, we also have to understand what it is we want. And I was very clear at the time about what I wanted. I got lost along the way many times. I had, COVID was difficult. I tried other endeavors. I tried building other things. I started building a short term rental portfolio and had to put some things on pause. I have just been through a lot. I made a lot of mistakes along the way. I also got lost. And I think most of the time we get trapped in business. I was just talking with a client today about this. We start building a business because we want freedom, and quickly we build ourselves back into the box that we started to get away from. And I've just been down this road so many times. Now I've guided a lot of people out from that box, but it's quite a common problem to build what you know, whether that's a job, whether that's a relationship, whether that's a career, whether that's art. You build what you know. To break out of that, you have to be really intentional. You have to be quite a visionary. And I don't mean like you got to want to build a space program and launch satellites, but you do have to know what you want. I think my journey has largely been a summation of tests and trials, failure, and asking really big questions. And now I get to do that with people who are trying to break through, knowing that they think you can just extend what you're doing and get to the next level. When the next level looks completely different, you have to completely die. There's a death of who you are and how you act and operate that needs to happen for you to get there. And I went through that death many times. I'm grateful to have done that. But my journey was one of like death, rebuild, death, rebuild, death, rebuild so many times that the person that's sitting here today has a lot of stories and wisdom through the pain of that, and also enough success to say, hey, I think there's a better way.
So I love how you're talking about this death rebuild thing because it sounds similar to what really hit me hard when I read Benjamin Hardy's 10x is easier than 2x. And
Mm,
it's kind of interesting because I had left that book on my shelf for a really long time. A lot of people were talking about it and raving about it. And I remember looking at it thinking like, this is the antithesis of what we're about here at Pursuing Freedom. This is like 10x hustle culture. No, that's not at all what it's about. And if
yeah.
anybody's read the book, you know now, but if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. But regardless, what you're talking about here, Aaron, just reminds me of that concept of like, people thinking they need to extend or do more of what they're doing to get more.
Yep.
And I always say you've got to do a ton less if you want to get to the next level. Because if you look back on your story of death, rebuild to where you are today, I would imagine that your now reality is very unrecognizable to the
Mm,
painful reality where you felt stuck thinking I need
mhm.
to add to grow. Can you talk us through like your philosophy around that or your experience in that?
Well, the philosophy now is that vision sort of dictates our future, and rather than serving as motivation, we usually can imagine more. I think we imagine more very vaguely. So we're like, I want more money or I want more time. One of my big pet peeves about the personal development space is that we talk about financial freedom, and I go ballistic. Maybe ballistic's aggressive, but I get very excitable when people are like, I want freedom, because I'm like, not good enough. That's not a sufficient answer. That's like saying, what do you want to drink? And someone answering a drink, right? You only want freedom if you have a job. Like I've never met anybody that's really excited about what they do. That's like, I want something completely different. Freedom represents the antithesis of a box. So a vision where we're clear presents something really, really vivid for us to work towards, really detailed, and everything that we want and aspire to creates a feeling. So a vision actually stands as a space for the way we feel. The challenge, though, when we start to grow and really dial in what it is we want, is that it requires what our definition of clarity is, which is the removal of undesirable options. So when you start to build a vision, what you have to ride the tension of is, oh my God, none of what I have today is up there, which
Mm.
seems overt and obvious. We're often, though, very afraid to take the leap that gets us there. You have to let go of the ground you're on to fly. When we work to take this philosophy into practicality, we're working with already successful people. They're at a phase of what's next. And what I've noticed is that the idea of cutting what has created their success, what has created their reality, becomes really scary. And the only answer, when you start to look at the idea of 10x is 2x, and if you're looking at, I really want to get to the next level, what you'll have to recognize is that the majority of things won't make it there in your current life. They won't survive there, nor will the version of you. And the reason that's so beautiful is that what you imagine there does not involve you doing a lot, right? The more that we're looking for is, I want slow Mondays. I want 4 work days in a week. I don't want 5. I don't want 7. So we typically imagine our more very deliberately. I like to force, push, nudge our clients to actually describe more as less, because then it creates space. Most of what we're looking for in a dream is space. And that space denotes a feeling. So that might mean I feel free, I feel slow, I feel grateful. It might mean I feel fulfilled. But that's the definition that most people are hunting for when they think of more. We just make it in objects. I need to make $1 million a year. I need to have a team of 8. I need to sell the business. I need to exit. The point of all those things is to create a feeling. Our job is to generate the feeling and a vision and then scale back to the cutting. And that process takes time, but I have been caught up many times trying to add, because personal development is all about adding. And very quickly you get stuck in this bottleneck where something's got to give. And usually that's when we die.
Yeah. So I mean, I knew that you were going to say some things in a more eloquent way than I often try to articulate, but the message is there. And, you talked about 2020 and how that affected some of your businesses and things like that. And at that time, I came up with a word for myself that was this unbecoming stressed and rushed and overconnected and overcommitted and overwhelmed, because I used to joke that my superpower was to crave the space, then logically and tactically create the space by what you said, right? Get another team member, put in a better system. Like, here's the logistics of the execution it's all brain based. It's all thinking our way, like you said, out. And so I'd create the space, and then my superpower was to fill it again till it overflows.
Yep.
And so over the course of the last 4 years, as we're recording this in August of 2029, it's been this very deliberate unbecoming. And when I work with people, they sometimes look at me like I'm a crazy person, because I'm telling them that the very first step is to stop, get up and hurry up, which you've been programmed since you were 3 years old, since the first day of
Yep.
preschool. Get up and hurry up, get up and go. Monday morning, get up and go, get up and do. And it's like you said, everything we want as entrepreneurs is in the idea of the feeling that we'll have, the feeling we'll experience, and the having of it, right? More money, I'm going to feel better. And then we both have seen it and experienced it, where your business grows beyond what you prepared for, and you're earning at the highest level, and you feel the opposite of free,
Yep.
right? And you're running
Yep.
on fumes, burning out. And then you tell yourself, when it slows down, when I come up for air, then I'm going to feel all the things we want to feel. And
Yep.
I've even thought to myself that I'm kicking myself for creating the name of this company, Pursuing Freedom, in 2016, because it almost sounds as if that would imply that freedom is a destination. And so I loved what you talked about, how you want the freedom and then you build yourself into a box. So talk to me a little bit about how you help folks understand and maybe even believe in the art of subtraction to create the space so that we can feel the freedom that we seek now. Because when we are at ease, when we're calm, when we're present and clear-headed and focused and excited about just being alive today, I find that's when the most doors open, and I see opportunities, and I meet new people, and stars align and paths cross, and it's fascinating, right?
Yeah.
But it's not someday I get to feel that way. It's I choose to feel that way by claiming myself and my freedom now.
It's a transformational process in some ways. The pattern is so embedded in our personality and our identity that the removal of it requires us to be a new person. We have to somehow and simply create a pathway for someone to operate on a different frequency. It isn't really a frequency conversation, and I don't think it needs to be, because that can get really weird really fast.
Me too.
You're like, whoa. But what is interesting is that if we think of frequency instead, we use the word frequently. Now we actually have something to work with, right? If you are frequently stressed on Monday, well, the way to alleviate that is to frequently change your structure. You'll have to do it enough that that becomes who you are, so that when someone says, hey, can you meet on Monday? You just say, no, I don't meet on Mondays. the art of subtraction, which I love that phrase, is difficult because we become attached to certain connections. So we say like, well, work hard, more money, or we say something like, no pain, no gain. And these philosophies have largely been perpetuated because of like more social clout than actual effectiveness. I think that when we start subtracting things, we have enough room to invite something big. So if I were to hand you a 45-pound medicine ball, you couldn't do that with a handful of like candy and an arm full of notebooks and your laptop and like a coffee. You couldn't handle something big. When we build a big vision, what's usually obstructing that is all the small things that are in our hands. And here's the
Mm.
narrative that we live by. We say, well, when my hands are empty, then I'll take on the 45-pound massive medicine ball that I want, like the big thing. But there's no space, there's no room. In order to create space, we have to start getting things out. But there's that weird limbo that we distrust. I think that as business owners, what we've been led to believe is that if we want to grow and if we want to saturate ourselves with more, we like inch our way there. We just progressively go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But change doesn't work like that. And if you're going to grab something big, if you're really going to go for something exciting, what you have to recognize is that you're not going for 1, 2, 3, 4. You're going for like 1, 2, 3 square. It's a totally different way of thinking and operating. The subtraction only feels negative if you are counting 1, 2, 3, 4, because then it'd be 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. But if you change your operating system and really start measuring from a different perspective, this is why coaching and good coaching and personal development can help you, is to really change your filtering. Vision to me is largely about criteria. I don't think vision should ever motivate somebody enough to overwrite their pattern. It can't really do that. Instead, vision to me is a criteria. It's like the bumpers in a bowling lane. And the role of vision should make it very easy to say that fits or it doesn't. And if it doesn't fit in your future, it does not belong in your present. That's an uncomfortable thing to say. It's a
Mm.
really uncomfortable thing to do. So if I say, all right, up there, I want to be fit, healthy, and invested in my health. As a coach, we're going to really quickly figure out where your money is going to your health right now. That doesn't mean you're going to start going to the gym 4 days a week. But if you're not going to the gym, you know what you're going to do tomorrow? The same thing could exist in business. If you say up there, I work 4 hours a week, I work with mega clients who do super listings, and I built a team underneath me, you're doing two things tomorrow. You're canceling your appointments, you're hiring a team that can handle the next set of this. Is it outside of your comfort zone? Yeah. But we've got to start getting things off your plate. Cancel all these meetings because we need you ready for the big one. If the big one came in, you ain't ready for that. You don't have the space to like really guide that person through that kind of purchase. You're so frantic with like these small wins, they're going to be repelled by you. We have to condition behavior. We have to really create a new identity. And really that's what the vision serves as. Who am I up there? Not just what do I get, what do I make, what do I earn, but who am I up there?
I love that so much. And we talk a lot about the idea of a slingshot, that you have to pull it back in order to experience the catapult. And
I
like
love
you
that.
said before, everyone's thinking in 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, I just need one more deal. I just need one more lead. I just need one more client transaction. And we can't get there from here because that is this, I'm stuck on my problem. I'm in fear and I'm looking at what's going to solve this problem, but I'm claiming that I have a vision of abundance and freedom. But I'm over here stuck on this little problem and thinking that once I get that next client and I get them to the closing table and I pay off this credit card, then I'm going to be all better. But it's not going deep enough to
Yeah.
really address that identity piece. And I'm just kind of curious about your feelings on this. Is that I've always felt that it's important for everyone listening to know that there's nobody that we admire that doesn't still experience any of the human emotions of fear, worry, self-doubt, uncertainty, etc. And that when oftentimes we take a risk in spite of it, we can look back and realize that was a turning point. That was one of our best decisions ever. And it can help us to recognize the fear, be a witness to it, and then take the action anyway. Because if you've done it enough times, you can see the pattern of fear
Yeah.
and almost be like it's an object that you're observing within you. And instead of
Mm.
needing it to go away or expecting that once that's gone, then I'll have the confidence to do the thing. It's like, no, we don't need that. I mean, we don't even need the fear to have that much power over us, but we also don't need it to go away necessarily. I
Yeah.
feel like in some regards, it loses its strength, but it doesn't necessarily go away. So they're almost like it diffuses or it dissipates a little bit, but it still has a way of creeping in. And then I'm like, I see you. And oh, well, my heart is still saying go. So there have been instances in my life where I was absolutely terrified, like terrified to the point of avoidance for months or years to do a thing, to have a difficult conversation, to make a change in my career, whatever. And then on the other side, it's like I've grown my wings on the way down and I'm actually soaring and it feels
Yeah.
amazing, right? So can you share any experience you have with that, or at least your relationship with fear and how you see it today versus how it held on to you and kept you stuck in the past?
It's such a great question. The first thing that comes to mind is Finding Nemo. So when I think of Finding Nemo, the first character that stands out is Fear. It's that giant shark, right? Bruce, I think his name is. So Bruce's comment is like, fish are friends, not food. Similarly, I think we get mixed up with fear. Fear is a friend, not a foe. If you're pressing on an edge, if you're really trying to grow, if you're actually after it, then you're constantly going to be around fear. And what has changed a lot over the last almost 10 years related to fear is I used to think that there was going to be a moment where fear would not be there and I would go, that it was sort of like a suppressor. And if you removed it, I would just spring. What I've learned is that fear actually is the spring. Fear is the thing that when you can sit with it for a long time and understand what you're experiencing, it's the thing that says yes. Because if you're not afraid of it, it does not represent change. So when we say we want more, we want something we've never had. If I want something I've never had, I'll have to do something I've never done. If I'm doing something I've never done, I'm probably going to feel some sense of fear. I think of it this way. There's an outcome that I'm looking at, and I'm looking at it in the future. And I'm like, man, I can't wait till I'm not afraid of that. The only way I'm not going to be afraid of it is if I get to the other side of it, and I've done it. So what I've been working on for many years is making sure that my sequence is appropriate. So my sequence now is see fear, take action, appreciate fear. And that sounds really like overly simple. I think that much of what makes it effective though is its simplicity. The cosmic irony, in my opinion, is that we believe that there's a place that exists without fear, just like discomfort, just like tension. And if you hunt for that place, you will find yourself in a very, very sad state of comfort and continuity. And it will look like safety. That's the illusion. It will look like, well, it's fine, but it will also sound like it's not that bad. Or it will sound like it's okay. And very quickly that voice will sort of settle for well, I thought about it, but and all of a sudden the cycle goes from 3 days to 3 weeks to 3 years to 30 years. And my context to everything is like, this is all very short. My lens of mortality is a great tool to make sure that I'm moving, making fear an indicator rather than an institutional conviction that says like, hey, you're not good enough, or hey, you're not going to make it, or whatever your inner narrative is. I think it's worth looking around and having a real conversation with some of your heroes, because they are probably not as fearless as you think when you really get to know them. And,
Totally.
and instead, what if you ask them the right questions, they will tell you how afraid they are, how scared they are. And rather than being your hero, they can become your advocate. because then you learn that everyone around you is dealing with fear. And if you talk about it, you tend to move.
This is interesting because when you talk about that whole comfortable piece, there's a quote that I love so much that I put it in my book, but it says, the sooner you step outside your comfort zone, the sooner you realize you weren't all that comfortable.
Yeah.
And when talking with people that you can see and feel energetically are stuck, and we talk about this, it's like, let's be honest. You're sitting here on the brink of fear, on the brink of taking action, and the fear is controlling your choices and your behaviors because it's uncomfortable. But is this comfortable? Using fear as an excuse that you're not living the absolute vision you have for yourself in the most fulfilling life you could ever imagine, powered by work that you love. Like, I love how the first thing you said was that that coaching job was the first time you ever paid to do something you love. And can you imagine what the world would feel like if people prioritized figuring out what they
Uh,
love and then figuring out how to do it, and then or
yeah.
taking the career you have and instead of looking at the way other people are doing it and then doing it even though it's completely out of alignment with your personality and what interests you, you're doing it like you said earlier, doing what I wanted to do rather than what I had to do. How many people listening wake up every day and think, well, I just have to, I just have
Mhm.
to. And it's like, well, what if we just change that to, I want to, it'd be fun to, I'd love to. Then how
Yeah.
would we complete that sentence so that we can infuse joy and purpose into your work? It doesn't necessarily mean a career change, but to me, it's the difference of paddling upstream in this grind and this resistance and all the dread and procrastination that comes with I just have to. And it's fine. I'll just have to just dig deep for the motivation versus getting on a raft and having a freaking awesome adventure as you cruise on down the river, and get into the flow, have a little fun, lighten up. You said life is short. And we always say, if not now, when? It's like when you have that impulse and you think someday, I always say, how about now? And then we can reverse engineer the way to that destination. So I love that. And I'm kind of curious because it feels like you've been on a parallel journey of exploring where business and spirituality intersect and how they can be intertwined. And it's not necessarily a religious thing, but it's about this inside out approach to
Mhm.
fulfillment, which is really what we're all after, right? Like we said earlier, when I get there, I'll feel, when I get this, I'll feel,
Yeah.
well, how do we get to feeling and living this one short life we have now? So, do you have any perspective on the difference between that old school mentality of like you set the pin in the GPS, you choose the goal and then you make it happen versus you have a vision that gives you the feeling of fulfillment even in the imagining of it as you allow it to unfold without it needing to be fully scripted by your analytical brain for you to be able to feel joy in the unfolding of it. Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes total sense. A comment that I think might be helpful in this terrain. If you're listening and you are in a small amount of pain, you will either remain there and justify the amount of pain, to your point that we can kind of say like it's fine. If I poked you every day with like a small blade just in the shoulder, not enough to like pierce the skin, just annoy you, how long would it take for you to be like, bro, like please quit. This is very annoying. How often do we not do that though? Right? How many justifications will we do in our business where we're like, I don't like this, but I got to do it. And these stories get pervasive. When I think about the change that happens when you stop making those justifications, this internal feeling of I'm going to work towards something bigger than me, I get very frustrated about the general tendencies with goal setting. So I'm willing to bet everybody listening will understand this. If you put a goal in front of you, like so loud and so big, I can't see you anymore. My hand is covering my eyes to anything beyond that. And I put it in my wall and all this other shit. But I get blocked almost. I block my vision by putting something in my line of sight. If you are an athlete, this is where I learned it was athletics. If you're an athlete, you have to fall in love with the process. It doesn't matter what the goal is. There's no chance at championship if you are not committed to the process. In business, though, we tend to deny the process in pursuit of something that is an outcome, a goal, a measurement, a metric, hoping that one day we'll actually get to enjoy the process. That's the hope. Is like, if I get to the goal, then I'll enjoy the process after that. my history taught me this, my experience taught me this harder. If I have not built a process that I love, does not matter what the goal is, I'm just going to chase another goal, another goal, another goal. A vision and a goal are often at odds. And if you really want to get moving, you have two options. Either build a very compelling vision, so much so that you are excited about your criteria and what it could do for you and for others, or you light your chair on fire. But often a goal doesn't do either of those things. It's not exciting enough for you to feel connected to it emotionally, spiritually, mentally, nor is it painful enough for you to be like, I'm done with this. It just puts you in limbo. So you're like, I'm gonna pursue this. I want to grow the business by 20% this year. Well, what does that goal do? That doesn't force you to say, I'm so sick of dealing with this particular client problem, or I'm so tired of like trying to pony and showboat my like custom suits around. I'm tired of that. I want to be more authentic. If you have a vision that's compelling, you can create something that is more authentic. And then that enthusiasm pulls you. The criteria of the vision will pull you into that. Or you can sit and say, hey, this isn't working for me. I'm ready to change. But I think that goals often perpetuate like, well, it's worth it for 20% growth year over year. It's worth it for 6 more clients. I just want to sell $1 million worth of commission this year. Having worked with enough people who are caught in the loop, one pattern that I've noticed is that we will justify pain for as long as necessary if we believe that the like other side is better. And the other side is never better, because there is no other side. You are in the process.
Yeah,
You
you're
just
in the
pick it.
only side. It's
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. You're like, you're in it, and you're like, man, eventually I want this process to be better. So we just perpetuate, thinking that we'll outlast the like demon chasing us. In the pursuit of business, I got really wrapped up in like, well, when I get there. And that line is one of the most pervasive lines I've heard from almost everybody we've worked with. When I get there, I will. And the magic of a vision is that we're really trying to solve the puzzle, the Rubik's Cube, for the thing that you say you would do when you get there. When I get there, I would go to the gym. When I get there, I'd build a scholarship fund. When I get there, I'd learn to dance. When I get there, I'd learn Spanish. When I get there, I'd take my wife out once a week. That is the process that we're all fighting for. So our secret sauce is to say, tell me where there is. Okay, sell your business, make $1 million, whatever it is. Then I'm going to ask you 1,000 questions to get really clear on what you would do when you got that. And in that description is your vision, but you can't see it because you're so addicted to what there is. So we remove the block from our eyes so we can actually have sight to a vision.
Dude, that's like poetry. I feel like I don't know that I've ever said this on however many hundreds of episodes we've had over 6 years, but I can't wait to re-listen to this interview. You've said so much in this short time together that I couldn't even keep up with the note taking. I feel like I just took 5 pages of notes, and now I can't wait for this to release so that I can go for a walk and listen to it again, or sit here with my pen and paper and take more notes. Like I really, really appreciate your perspectives, and you're incredibly well spoken and amazing at articulating it, but also just no bullshit, just straight to the core. I can imagine the people that get the chance to work with you experience incredible growth and transformation if they want it bad enough, right? And that's what it boils down to, is that anybody listening is no different than you and I having this conversation and having the curiosity to explore this journey and to want to feel the way we imagine we're supposed to feel in the achievement of some objective. We want to feel that every single day. And the more we prioritize how we feel and that well-being and the joy of life, the more doors open, the more new relationships, the more opportunities. And it's like a beautiful, fun adventure. And isn't that what we all want this life to be? For anyone listening, the important thing is to not listen to this conversation and think to yourself, well, it must be nice. It's probably easy for them. They sound more optimistic than me or whatever. Like, I don't want to say that this is the work. I mean, this is the work. And calling it that is what it is, because it's not like you do the work and then you wake up one day and you're fearless and everything goes away, and that you don't, you can't fully deprogram yourself in one 30-minute podcast interview or one inspiration moment at a conference or something. You have to be willing to practice, and you have to want it bad enough And it's not a matter of whether any of us can achieve the well-being and the feeling that we imagine and the having of the things that we want in our lives. It's just a question of whether we're willing to explore. And
Mm,
so I really think that's the biggest challenge for the listeners is, are you willing to explore? Are you willing to be curious enough to say, I want it bad enough? And then surround yourself with people like Aaron, who can remind you of a future you might want for yourself. Because the one thing I know for sure is that when you look at somebody and you think that sounds amazing, and then you compare yourself and say, it must be nice, the faster you get in the room with those people is the faster that your life starts to evolve. And you might get to their chapter 10 by your chapter 4. And it's exponential growth and it's quantum leaps and it's
mm.
freaking fun. So thank you so much, Erin. Like you exceeded my expectations. I knew I was going to love this conversation, but I loved it even more than I expected. So thank you.
That compliment means a tremendous amount. Thank you.
Well, how can folks find you, follow you, message you if you're open to it, whatever?
Definitely open to it. I actually think that's one of the gifts of something like social media platforms where you can have access. Instagram's a great place. Facebook's a great place. Just search for my name, Aaron Velky. V is in victory, ELKY. If you want to follow the Get Out of Your Own Way show, that's on Apple and Spotify, probably a couple other places too that you can find it. I always appreciate people that listen to podcasts. I think there's a lot to learn and be gleaned from podcasts. We've worked really hard to make content that is relevant and also deeper than just the surface level, like go get more conversation. So if you go to Instagram or go to aaronvelky.com, you can sign up for our newsletter. We spend a lot of time really nurturing these messages, kind of like this conversation today, so that you have another lens into things and it doesn't have to be just another bashing of the skull to say, go get more, go get, you're capable of more. I'm a big believer in do the deep work, do the rooting, and then the tree will sprout. So again, Instagram, Facebook, or website, aaronvelky.com.
Awesome. Thank you again, Erin. This has been awesome.
Thanks for having me.
And to all my friends out there, what did you think? Was this not amazing? I want to hear from you too. Can you shoot me a DM on Instagram at Pursuing Freedom Official? I love getting little messages about the guests and how amazing they are because it inspires me to keep looking for these incredible people to come and share their wisdom and inspiration. And as always, please make sure to leave that 5-star review because it helps us attract amazing guests like Aaron, help this content get found, and help you on your journey to building a life you don't need a vacation from. As always, I love you. I appreciate you. We'll see you next time.